some hundreds of years later, like 800 years later, the voice of history and the universal call to holiness have a certain way about echoing once again. And regarding the present moment and the will of God, two areas of spirituality so dear to her life, Mother tells us, quote, holiness is simple. Holiness is doing God's will in the present moment. That's it. Holiness consists of 4 words. The will of God, period, end quote. She also states, we have to learn to live in the present moment. We have to ask God, God, what are you calling me to do now, right now in this present moment? Not yesterday or tomorrow, but right now. She says God's will is manifested to us in the duties and experiences, which would mean both good and bad experiences, of the present moment. We have only to accept them and try to be like Jesus. She tells us God is not hindered if he wants to use you, whether you are holy, perfect, imperfect, good or bad. Listen, Mother Angelica says, God can speak through an ass if he wants to. And he did. Remember, that's how he spoke to Balaam the prophet in the book of Numbers, chapter 22. She adds, so there's hope for all of us. And echoing St. Thomas Aquinas' belief that holiness is not a pose, something that Pope Francis said earlier, it's not a pious look on your face, that's not holiness. It's becoming holy right where you're at with your everyday experiences. Echoing St. Thomas Aquinas' belief that holiness is not a pose, Mother states, holiness to most people is looking holy. They think a holy person is one who never loses his temper. Oh, please. They think a holy person never feels impatient. Well, there is not an Italian born who is patient. And since there are more Italian canonized saints than any other nationality, there must be something about being impatient that makes you holy. My friends, my dear friends, Mother Angelica is a universal voice for the universal call to holiness. Let us all heed that venerable and motherly voice. And as you pursue this universal call to holiness yourself within your own state in life and vocation, remember that Mother tells us, look, you must laugh your way to heaven because tears won't get you there. You must laugh your way to heaven because tears won't get you there. You know, Psalm 90 says, quote, our life is over like a sigh. Our span is 70 years or 80 for those who are strong. They pass swiftly and we are gone, end quote. Mother lived to be 92. Now that's pretty darn strong, beyond 80. And what is the temporal crown, my friends? The temporal crown of living well this universal call to holiness in this life right now, an average of 78 years, the latest longevity statistics for those of us living in the West. What is the temporal crown of living well this universal call to holiness in this life that also bears its eternal crown in the next life? For the answer to this question, my friends, and I can't stress this enough, look no further than the scriptural quote which is engraved as Mother's epitaph on the facade of her tomb located in the Crypt Church at the Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament in Huntsville, Alabama, home also to Our Lady of the Angels Monastery and Mother's own Poor Clare nuns. The quote is 2 Corinthians 3:18, wherein we read these words, quote, and we with our unveiled faces, reflecting like mirrors the brightness of the Lord, all grow brighter and brighter as we are turned into the image that we reflect. This is the work of the Lord, who is Spirit. End quote. Mother Mary Angelica of the Annunciation, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
EWTN. Live true. Live Catholic. welcome to the 2016 EWTN Family Celebration, honoring the life and legacy of Mother Angelica from Birmingham, Alabama. We now bring you Raymond Arroyo and the address he presented at the 2016 EWTN Family Celebration.
Hi, guys. Great to see you all. Great to see you. Okay. Very nice, but you're cutting into my time. No, so much of Mother Angelica's life really was about redemptive suffering. So here comes the suffering, boys and girls. Here he is. During the last 15 years of Mother's life, I remember walking into her room at Our Lady of the Angels Monastery, into her cell. And inevitably, it was not uncommon to find Mother in the middle of what I would describe as a food fight. I would usually go in around lunch or dinner because, hey, if you're going to catch an Italian in a good moment, where else would you go? During lunch or dinner, right? And she would be peppy. She'd be in a good mood. She'd be eating. On most occasions, Sister Mary Gabriel, the diminutive nun who cared for her really up until the very end, would be standing there, spoon in hand, trying to feed Mother. At that point, you could always tell what mood Mother was in because she was either very receptive, but more often than not, when I went in, she would be doing the food fight routine. And I would walk in and say, "Is she trying to force feed you again?" And she'd wink and turn back to Sister Gabriel. And she would do this kind of thing. The sister would be there with a spoon trying to feed her, and Mother would go, and then she'd open her mouth. She'd pull away, and then she'd look over at me and go, "Ah," and laugh. So she knew exactly what she was doing, and at some point she would just pull the sheet up over her mouth and go. And the translation for that was, "Lunch is over." But I love that she would always sort of rouse herself when I would go see her. And some of the nuns said, she would play Mother Angelica on those occasions, even though I'm sure she felt like Rita Rizzo most of the time. It was a tough period, those last years for Reverend Mother, but I would argue that they constituted the most important part of her life. And I know we're here to consider Mother's life and legacy. You've heard so many people talk about variations on that life, different keys of the people she impacted, her message, her lessons. Legacies are hard things. They're hard things because they're movable, they're changeable, they depend on others. And so since the life is more fixed, why don't we start there? I've written so much about Mother Angelica's life that nearly everything I have to say I think are contained in the 2 biographical volumes. Rita Rizzo, as many of you know, was a child of divorce. She lived in poverty. She was abandoned by her father at 5. And she was left in the care of a mother who at times had her own difficulties emotionally. Thank God, May Rizzo, her mother, was a fantastic storyteller. She was somebody who could tell a story about just about anything. And it was a great gift that she passed along to her daughter, Rita. You know the rest of the story, the way pain intruded on Rita's life and how it would lead her down the paths that God intended her to follow. There were stomach problems, there were swollen knees, there were shattered vertebrae, there was asthma, bone-crushing asthma. These unwelcome surprises, these sufferings became signs. They were heralds of the life Mother Angelica was meant to live. They redirected her story in a way that was hers alone. It was set apart, that path. Now, 2 things stand out from the early life that we should never forget. One, she was radically dependent on God's divine providence. This is a trust that God does indeed take care of everything. No matter what we do, He is truly in charge. And that trust was the bedrock of her entire life. And she knew how to offer sufferings up to God better than just about anybody I've ever encountered. This combination of talents, this combination of spiritual approaches would take her to incredible places. There's a reason that I titled the first book, Mother Angelica, the remarkable story of a nun, her nerve, and the network of miracles. I only meant EWTN as that network of miracles incidentally. The network of miracles were the connections that ran through her life. All those miraculous turns and events, even her pain and suffering, became catalysts to move her where she was supposed to go. You know of the perilous building of this global Catholic network, the two orders she founded, the shortwave and terrestrial networks she labored to raise, the struggle to overcome takeover attempts and illnesses to make these inspirations a reality. Then in 2001, she was felled by a debilitating stroke. It confined her to the corner room in Our Lady of the Angels Monastery, and she would remain in that room exclusively for about 13 years. That's a long time. Most thought her story was over. They were wrong. Mother and I remained close to the end of her life. It was really one of the great privileges of my life, and looking back, to not only write about her, to work with her, to be her friend, almost her grandmother. Even when many didn't see her any longer and she was cut off from so many of the people who loved her, to be able to watch her, to see the transition in those last years was for me a great grace. I also watched her play little games. She never really lost her spunk and her spirit. She would play what I guess you call it possum. When people, you got to remember, she's confined to this cell. She can't leave the cell. So think about it for a moment. It makes perfect sense. When certain people would come to visit, I'll give you an example. I'm there one day, and I'm talking to her, and she's laughing. She's animated. She's making, faces. She's totally responding. And she hears the door open, and someone comes in and says, "Hello, Mother. Hey, I thought I'd come by to see you." I looked down. I looked up to see who was there. I looked down. She's out. Look. I said, "Oh my gosh." I said, "She was fine. She was talking," and they said, "Well, you must have tired her out." I said, "No, she was fine." And so they waited around for, 5 or 10 minutes. We chatted about other things. The nuns interacted with them. And then they finally gave up, and they said, "Well, she's sleeping. I'll check back with her later." And they'd walk out the room. The minute the door closes, she's right back. So, our mother, this has been a hard and wondrous year for me, and I've spent it telling stories that I deeply care about. The first one was the story of an adventure, the little boy. It was a story of wonder for the young and the young at heart. This Christmas, I'm telling the story of my hometown and the traditions and the belief that hold it together and make it so special. And then I fulfilled a promise I made to my friend to tell the last part of her life. Her grand silence, I called it. And it was. Mother told me when we started the biography, "My whole life," she said, "my whole life is a testament and a witness to divine providence," she said. And indeed, it's true. And when you look back, when you see the way that providence unfolded in her life, and in the life of that network, and in the lives of the people watching who were grafted into this family she built, it's hard not to see the hand of God and the way that he works in unpredictable ways. I love stories because they teach us so much. They teach us how to be human. They remind us of who we were meant to be. Someone asked me, "Why do you spend all this time writing stories? You're writing fiction, you're writing nonfiction. Why do you do this?" I said, because we need survival guides. I think we need survival guides to this thing called life. And great lives are worth preserving and capturing because they remind us of what we're capable of if we're willing to go down those paths, if we're willing to sacrifice. Remember, Jesus only told stories when he spoke to people. He only spoke in parables. I believe this is why. Stories sort of strike us at the heart, and we remember them, much more than lecturing and finger-wagging. Reverend Mother's story continues, and it's what I love about it. She told me so many things, not always easily, I have to tell you, but honestly. In 2000, we were doing one of our long sessions. I did 3 years of interviews with her. Every Saturday, we'd meet in the grill. You saw pictures of it earlier. We'd meet behind that grill, the bars of her monastery. The public's on one side, the nuns are on the other. It looked like she was visiting me in jail, frankly, but And I asked her one time, I said, did you, oh, there it is. See, I'm trying to, please give me water. Get me a parole. One time I asked her, because I was curious, I said, did you ever date anybody? It's a logical question. She was young. And she said, no, not really. Nope. No, I don't recall. No. I said, okay. Well, I would go back to Canton, Ohio after I'd interview her. I would either go to Birmingham or down to Mobile or to Rome or to Canton, Ohio to piece together bits of her story. And then we'd meet the next Saturday and I'd confront her with whatever I discovered. I'd interview hundreds. I had interviewed 100 and something people. Well, I get back from Canton, and in Canton I discovered an old friend of Rita Rizzo's who remembered a guy named Adolf Schulte. And I when the guy told me about Adolf Schulte, I kind of did a double take, and he said, yeah, this is, Rita used to go out with this guy, Adolf Schulte. I said, really? And where did they go out? And he gave me the name of the place. So I go back Saturday, I sit with Mother, and I always waited again during dinner time because I knew she'd be eating, relaxed, and she'd tell me all kinds of great things over dinner. And I said, Mother, I want to return to something. We talked about you dating in Canton when you were younger. Uh-huh. I said, do you remember somebody named Adolf Schulte? Uh-huh. I said, now, did you date him? He was a boarder at Rhoda Wise's house, who was her spiritual mother, really. A woman who she credited with healing her stomach as a young girl. That really opened up the entire religious life and her love affair with God. And so I asked again, I said, do you remember Adolf Schulte? Well, yeah, I saw, yeah, I know who he is, yeah. I said, do you remember going with him to a place called the Purple House? This was very casual, Raymond. Nothing happened. There was nothing there. And that's when she gave me that great line. She said, look, I don't know about other people, but sexually I'm a eunuch. I wasn't interested. So, I wrote that down, put it in the biography. What I love about Mother is she was always flesh and blood. She was always, it was the contradictions, it was the challenges, it was the obstacles and the disabilities that made Mother rich and a rich subject for me. And you remember, she used to always tell me, I mean, I'm almost tired of telling this because you've heard it so often, but she did really say, and she would repeat it often, don't you sugarcoat my life. I wish you 40 years in purgatory if you sugarcoat my life. And the reason for that is, the reason she wanted the whole truth, the full story, she would often say, was because she wanted to give other people access to holiness. She wanted others to know this is a possibility. In 2001, not long before her stroke, we were speaking about some bishops who didn't really care for Mother's style. That's a nice way of putting it. They didn't care for her style. And we've talked round the robin. And she said, no, they don't pay too much attention to me. They're just waiting for me to die. But I won't. Well, and then she exhaled and she got very quiet. And this is how it was when you were with Mother. You'd be rolling with explosive laughter, and then all of a sudden everything would quiet down. It was like this veil dropped over her. And she would get very serious because it was something important. And she said, you know, Raymond, I recently have been talking to the Lord. Been asking him if he'd let me stay until the worst was over. For my church and for my community. Till the worst was over. Well, the Lord certainly accepted her proposal. Her mission continued for 15 more years. Now, what is that mission? What was that mission? I would argue her first mission was to pray for souls, to intercede for humanity, to bring hope to those who had none, and to do so as a contemplative. During this grand silence, she returned to her first vow. Reverend Mother was not a TV personality. That's what you got to see of her. She was actually a contemplative nun who did TV. That's who she is and was. And after 20 years of being allowed to be out here with us, God called her back to her first vow, to her contemplative life. And she made good on that first vow. In those last years, she had a very strong awareness of her mission. And I want you to know that it continued because she would want you to know this. There's a beautiful story one day, one of her nuns, Sister Mary Peter, told me. She got Mother's wheelchair and brought it out and offered to take her out on the balcony just to get some air outside. And Mother held the bed, didn't want to go. And she said, "No, this is where I'm supposed to be, in this room. In this room." She was a full-time contemplative again, and she knew it. Not only did she know it, she knew the place that God in his providence had set aside for her. This was to be the place where she would work for the next 15 years in her cell. This would be the arena for demonic attacks, intense prayer, and psychological suffering that very few in this room can appreciate. If you want to know why EWTN stayed on the air during that whole period, why it grew, why many, many souls were touched all over the world, you need look no further than the woman fitfully laying in her bed in the corner cell of Our Lady of the Angels Monastery. She was doing that work. Though vastly altered, it continued. She once said, "Our suffering only has meaning if we unite it in love to the suffering of Christ." And she did that in those last tortured years. Perhaps the most difficult suffering she endured, I would argue, is psychological. Psychological suffering. Imagine this driven, strong-willed, powerful woman, perhaps the greatest voice in Catholicism after the Pope. Okay? And she's reduced to a few words. She told her nuns once, "You don't know how hard it is not to be able to communicate." Popped right out. This was after the stroke. And then she said nothing else for the remainder of the day. These were like little inspirations that would, when you were there for them, it was like the air got sucked out of the room. She would speak and then there was nothing else. Now imagine she's suddenly unable to control when she rose or slept, when she ate, who came in and out of the room. This was hard on Mother. And I wrote that at times when you walked into the cell, it resembled a nun's martial arts demonstration. She was all elbows and legs and rigidity. I mean, she could fight off 3 nuns at once. I've never seen anything like it. She really could. But eventually, and this is again something we need to know and remember, because whether it's now or whether it's one of our loved ones, and I've gotten so many letters from people who've responded to this last coda in her story, we're all going down this path. We're either going to take someone we love there, or we're going to endure this. It is the finale for every life, in some way. And the beauty of Mother's witness is that eventually she abandoned even her will, that indomitable will, to God. She even gave that to him. She realized the nuns were doing what was best for her, and her affection became obvious. And over those years, she became like that child Jesus she so loved during her last few decades of life. Docile, gentle, yielding, radiant. Following the pattern of her active life, she gave and she gave and she gave and she gave to others right up until the end. There's a wonderful story my friend Sister St. John told me. And it reveals the heart of Mother. It reveals her capacity for giving. Many times she talked to Sister St. John, who worked at EWTN, about being a nun. She wasn't a nun yet, obviously. And the girl would often say, "Look, I'd love to join the community, but the timing's not right. I just can't do it now. And I've got this debt. I've got this debt that I can't leave my mother with." And that was always her excuse. And they talked all the time about it. So one day, Mother calls her to the parlor. And she arrives in the parlor, And there, sitting on the ledge, is a stack of money. Mother Angelica stares her down. Well, what's your excuse now? She said, sweetheart, you have to walk up to the edge of the cliff just like this. And then you have to take the step of faith. Take the step of faith. And she did. Sister St. John joined the community where she remains a member today. Mother's faith took tangible form. What I love about her is, and it's one of my pet peeves. Can I talk about my pet peeves? One of my pet peeves is I hate conceptual belief. Conceptual belief doesn't get you anywhere. Conceptual belief is just head games. Makes you feel good, as Father Wade was saying, makes everybody look holy and pious, doesn't get you where you're supposed to go. Faith has to be operable. It's got to be alive. And Angelica's faith was lively. It was alive. It took tangible form right up until the end. Even when she only saw darkness, she walked over the edge of that cliff and took the next step. She always did. She acted on her faith. And she touched many, many, many lives in the doing. Let's talk about her legacy now. It's time. In terms of faith, Mother Angelica should get credit. And credit is deserved for saving the church in America and around the world. That's what she did. She preserved devotions thought lost. She popularized and broadcast a sacred form of the Mass that would take root into the heart of millions at a time when it was not popular, nor was it advised to do so. She did it. With guts and grit and determined faith, she did it. This is no small accomplishment. That alone would have been enough to secure her legacy. But she did something else. She was the first and only woman to this day in the history of broadcast to launch and lead a television network on air for 20 years. No other woman's done it. Forget none. No other woman's done it. Full stop. Oprah, I hope you're listening. Never been done before. Her impact on millions and millions of people around the world whom she reached in their distress is very hard to quantify. I'll bet everybody in this room has a story. I was in Dallas, Texas last night. A woman came up. I lost my husband this year. The woman's 40 years old. I lost my husband this year. I'm sitting there crying in the hospital bed where he died. Mother Angelica's on TV. What she said changed my life. It allowed me to go on. I realized, even in this horrible place, God had a reason, and he had a message here for me. That's her power. And it goes on through the reruns, through the books of her thoughts and meditations, through her story itself. I tried to capture just a smattering of the letters that I receive day in and day out. I get them all week long from people all over the globe who are touched by that story. How she changed them, how her wisdom during that period, that 15-year grand silence, she couldn't physically speak, but she continued to spiritually speak. That is God's own peculiar way of working things out. It should also be said, she may have reached more people in her silence than she did when she was on air for 20 years because of the growth of the network, the expansion of radio, the books that came out were everywhere. It's an interesting observation. Then there's the other major parts of her legacy. Certainly her daughters, the Poor Clares of Perpetual Adoration at Our Lady of the Angels Monastery, and the houses that sprang from that root, they're a big part of Mother's legacy. They continue her mission of adoration as a contemplative, praying and interceding for the world in a powerful way. Prayer, determined communal prayer, was the precursor of everything she did. That mustn't be overlooked. There are the missionaries of the Eternal Word, her friars, who many of you know. They, I would argue, are the visible face of Mother, the faith in action, faith in word and deed, going out to others in a physical way. They have a contemplative dimension too, but they're out in the world. And then There is what I think is the last part of the legacy. Perhaps the most unpredictable. You and me. You and me. For me, she gave me so much. Her attention, her love, a brilliant subject to write about, and her correction. Oh boy, did she correct me. She would chastise me right in the middle of the hallway. Didn't matter who was there. Boom. One time she saw me, she said something to me and I was stung. She could see it. And she walked up and she threw an arm around me. She said, I love you like a brother. And I love you like a mother. And I'm just doing what mothers do. She walked down the hallway. At times she treated me like I was one of her novices. But it was because she cared, and I realized that in time. Among the many things she taught me was how to have a good time on and off camera. Right now I don't look like I'm having a very good time, but she's to blame for this too, so you take it as it comes. Joy is a rare thing in today's media landscape. Everybody's so dour, they're sour, they're just miserable out there. You have to have a laugh. You have to have a laugh every now and then. And nobody laughed harder or longer than Mother. You heard what Father Wade said earlier, so I won't repeat it, but remember, it was in my book first, so I take credit, okay? In fact, I'll tell you exactly who she said it to. He said earlier, you got to laugh your way to heaven because tears won't get you there, sweetheart. She said that to our friend Beverly Dean, who was an Italian who would burst into cascades of tears, whether she was happy, sad, or in between. She would just cry. And Mother said, boy, that woman, she's like a spigot turned on. So I remember once, and this gives you insight into her humor, into her suffering. This gives you, oh, there she is. There she is. Who else could do the cha-cha with the mariachi like Mother? Nobody. This is from our greatest hits reel. I love this reel. Maybe I'll just talk to the images because it's so fun. I wish you could hear it because she's going, ookie, tookie, tookie, tookie. So fun. She was playing along. She had no Spanish. She didn't know what she was saying. She was having a good time. But I remember that night. Wow, what a fun night that was. That too. There you get her. You see her. She told me this story once. Now remember, at this point, she's in Philadelphia. She's in the cathedral. She had founded EWTN 15 years earlier, so this wasn't a new enterprise. Everybody knew about EWTN. They certainly knew who she was. And she's sitting there, and a cleric is up in the pulpit, who I shall not name. I'm being good. Don't encourage me. And a cleric is up on the podium, and he says, you know what we need today? Mother told me this story. What we need is a Catholic media outlet. We need something that's going to take the church into the heart of the media, onto television. We pray that someday we'll have a national outlet that we can all gather around to bring the saving message of the church to the whole world. Mother Angelica's sitting there. So she tells me, can you imagine this? I'm sitting right there. He's looking at me. I mean, with the Lord's blessing, we already built this mysterious network he keeps talking about. He's been on my show. She said, so I'm sitting there and I'm listening to all of this. I'm listening. And the human part of me wants to stand up and say, hey, buddy, move on to something else. We already got the cable thing covered. We already did it. But then you think, Lord, you must have some reason you want to humble me. So you just sit there and you listen to this guy fantasize. And I tried to give thanks for what the Lord has allowed us to accomplish. You see, sometimes you can turn a moment of humiliation into something holy. And other times, You just want to. See, I'm working on the first part of that. Most of the time, I just want to, you know. Anyway. But when people ask me what I miss most about her, that's what I miss most. Those stories. Reverend Mother, for me, she awakened my boldness. Maybe I didn't need much of a wake-up call, but she gave it to me. She reminded me of the obligations we owe to our talents, the talents given to us, all of us, everyone in this room, people watching at home. I sometimes think it's got to be easier to have no talent, because then you don't have any obligation, but then you're probably envious of the people who do have talent, so we all have burdens, okay? She said, boldness should be the 11th commandment, honey. Boldness should be the 11th commandment. Mother always shunned fear, and she just did what she was called to do. She said, if you have a mission and you know God, what is there to fear? She's right. Among her many gifts, Mother gave me a chance to tell you amazing stories, to bring you the evolving stories of our people, of faith, of terror, of goodness, light and darkness. She called me to start the news operation 20 years ago. This month, on EWTN, the world over is celebrating its 20th year. Which, thank goodness Mother plucked me from the bassinet all those years ago and put me right behind the desk. It was very nice of her. She gave me a little tie. It was a clip-on then. Brushed my few strands of hair, changed my diaper, and put me right out there. After working with Mother, I no longer test inspirations. I act on them in the present moment as she did. She was a great, great light in my life as she has been, I know, in so many of yours. Our friendship was close. It was not always easy. Maybe I'll tell you the story later. She used to talk about our little thing. She said, you know, Raymond and I had our little thing. But we learned to love each other later. It was okay. But we survived. And boy, am I glad I got a chance to walk with her for so long. She would often urge me, even after the stroke, she said, tell the full story. Tell the full story. She knew, I guess, someday that I would update the biography. And there was something she said to me so many times. And I hear it every day. I also hear it when I hesitate, as we all do. There are some things that you know you should say, but you shy away from them. We do it in our personal life. We certainly do it in our professional life. And she used to say, the person who tells you the truth loves you. The person who tells you what you want to hear loves themselves. Well, I love and loved her, and I love you all too. So, nothing but the truth would suffice. I feel so blessed to have been able to capture Mother's wise-cracking wisdom, her story, her scriptural lessons, her private prayers. I love to go online and I see people retweeting these things. And for you all, they're wise and beautiful sayings, and they are. They're simple, they're funny, they're human, but they're very deep. And I always wanted to capture that full spectrum of her personality. And so many of those lines, I remember her either saying them to me or to her nuns or to friends or to her friend Jean Morris. I was there when she said these things. And so when you see them and you see people kind of copying them and they're making memes and posters out of them, I love that. You know, because I know that first kernel, but that wisdom goes on. And thank God we were able to capture it all. And it's an important lesson, I think, in that for all of us. I'm reminded of it often. It was very brave of Mother to submit to my questioning. She knew me. She knew I knew the flaws and holes in her life, the wounds in her life. And yet she submitted to all of that. We all have a role to play, I think, in the grand design. She had her role. I had mine. You have yours. A few months ago, after Mother died, I went to see the musical Hamilton. And It was halfway through the show, and I just started weeping in the play. It wasn't Hamilton, it wasn't the music, it wasn't the moment. It was gratitude for having been so near to Mother, for having been able to get a front row seat and preserve a piece of who she truly was. There's a song at the end that just broke me up. I had to leave. I was blubbering like a child. And it asked the question, who lives, who dies, who tells your story? And I thought, I did, Mama. I did. I have so, I promised myself I was cried out. I have much more I want to say, but you can read about it all. Thank goodness it's all there. And we'll talk later. But the final part of the legacy of Mother Angelica is here before me. It's at home. How will her example lead you to live your lives differently? To seek God's will in your life in this present moment. That's what she would want you to do. And to pursue it recklessly, fearlessly, as she did to the very end. There's a great line from E.M. Forster that I've always loved. And it makes me think about Mother. One person with passion is better than 40 people who merely care. Okay? One person with passion. That's who she was. The danger when a leader dies, when a great light goes out, is that the flesh and blood of that person can in short order become a caricature. They become a collection of images. As time goes on, they move further away from us, and we lose the edges. Years ago, I said or wrote, I can't remember where, that Mother Angelica runs the risk of becoming the Colonel Sanders of Catholicism. A smiling visage, a brand without blood and guts that made her so important. She would hate that. It is up to you to ensure that the nitty-gritty reality of Mother, her witness, the imperfect woman who overcame family history and disabilities, even spiritual dryness, to achieve God's will through a radical faith, is not forgotten, not only remembered, but lived. That's what she was striving to tell you all these years. Go out and live it. Embody it. Her story should give us hope that no matter our origin, our social standing, our power, our health, or our wealth, we are all called to do incredible things and achieve holiness. Reverend Mother has proven it is possible. It is possible. I hope you all will fill your lives with the joy, the zeal, the fearlessness, the commitment to truth, the love of others, and the determination to finish things well to the end, in the present moment as she did. Then we will see the full flowering of Mother Mary Angelica's legacy. That is and will be the powerful marker of who Mother Angelica was. There's a line that Mother liked to quote to her nuns during lesson. It comes from St. Francis's writings. He wrote this to his own community in 1225, and it applies not only to Mother's life, but to all of ours. Francis writes, "Humble yourselves, that you may be exalted by him. Hold nothing back of yourselves for yourselves, that he who gives himself totally to you may receive you totally." You were created for a purpose. Commit yourself to that purpose. That's what Mother did, and she did it to the very end, using even her disability to achieve that end. As you know, Mother's physical presence left us on Easter Sunday of this year. I want to read you the conclusion of the final part of my biography of Mother. She once wrote, "All the trials, sufferings, heartaches, and disappointments that seem as nothing compared to the glory your sufferings merited for me, with you, the glory your sufferings merited have given me the ability, dear Jesus, to roam freely in the love of the Spirit forever and ever. Mother's spirit is finally free. Even now, she continues to make spiritual children of strangers and draw new souls to her Lord. Somewhere in a darkened hotel room, a suburban den, a hospital, or a dorm, her light shines still. In the glow of a widescreen television or a computer monitor, beside a radio or before an open book, those in desperate straits, those confused or abandoned by life, have found Mother Angelica. And inexplicably, beyond time and space, she has found them and holds them near in the present moment. I believe she does. I love you, Mama. Thank you.
The Order of Preachers, who, by the way, celebrate their 800th anniversary of founding this year. Amen? And so, my friends, the universal call to holiness has a certain way of echoing itself some hundreds of years later.